welcome everybody to another episode of Behind the Arch Podcast.
Yep, and today as the host we have Heaven, me, myself, and I, period. And on the right of me, we have Miss Agron. Right, and then on the left of me, we got Miss Barbara. Yes. Okay, so how are you guys?
I'm good.
Hanging in there, not too bad.
That's good. That's great. We love that.
Thank you for having us on this, by the way.
Yes, we appreciate it. We feel honored that you thought of us to be a part of this podcast.
Of course,
100%.
You know, it's just gonna be fun. You guys are very funny people. You know, we need funny people in this channel and podcast.
We will aim to live up to that.
Yes, we shall not disappoint.
Oh, big words, guys. But today's episode is Arch of Compromise, Teacher's Edition. So I'm gonna ask a few questions about like compromising and stuff, and y'all just give y'all best answer. Okay. First question let's start with Ms. Barbara. As educators, have you ever compromised with your students?
So I think it's a great question, and I think compromise is such an important aspect of life and teaching. If we, as educators, expect our students to do things, we have to meet them halfway. Mm-hmm. And I've never been somebody that thinks that my classroom is my classroom. My classroom is our classroom. And as such, if I want you to do something, I have to bring something to the table. And it can't be all about me. It has to also be about you guys, because classrooms are communities. And I just think the skill of compromise is a really important skill in life in general. You're never going to get things your way only. And if you approach life thinking it's all about me and what I want, you're never going to get the result you want. So I think compromise is absolutely integral to a classroom community.
Do you have anything to add, Ms. Ava?
I think that Miss Barbara said it beautifully. The classroom is not about me, it's about us. It's about what we can all together contribute to. And your life is about not always getting what you want. Mm-hmm. But also life can be about finding the silver lining. And what I mean by silver lining is like that positive aspect of whatever transpires or whatever happens. And so if you're willing to still find that, you're on a right path of being able to negotiate throughout life when things happen to you or with other people, because not everyone is going to think like you, feel like you, or come from the same perspective or same background. Mm-hmm. And learning how to compromise is also learning how to adapt to different environments and speaking to different individuals. So I think it's pivotal to be able to do that. And I think that through the 10 some odd years that I've been teaching at this school, learning how to compromise with students and their families and within the community has been a big life lesson for me.
Can I throw something political in here? When I look at the issue of compromise and I look at our current government, our government only works when both sides are willing to come to the table. Correct. And find each other and respect each other's ideas and beliefs and understandings. And it can't be all one-sided. In order for things to be productive in our government, both sides have to be willing to give in on things that they feel strongly about to respect the other side. And that's when things move forward productively. And I think the same thing applies to schools, whether it's what students want, what admin wants, what parents want. Everybody has to come to the table with their beliefs and be willing to negotiate and compromise to find that community.
Oh, y'all ate that. Clock that tea, yes. We need like more teachers that have that kind of mindset, because I think compromising is a good thing, but some teachers don't see it. Like, I don't know, some teachers just don't do that, and that's why I don't be in their classes for real. Anyways. Oh, I forgot to ask you guys in the beginning, what is it that you guys teach in here?
Well, I teach U.S. history, but also on the special education aspect. And I'm also, I've been teaching now for with high school for the last 2 years, and I absolutely love it. I don't know if I could see myself ever going back to middle school because I initially started in middle school. And I would have to say, like, you guys, your class is the last class that I think I have a connection to from when I taught them in middle school. You know, and I would have to say it's a good chunk of it is Miss Barber's fault that I don't want to go back to middle school because I love working with her.
I'm not giving you up. I
love
can't
that.
quit you.
But like
love
I'm more
that.
on the special education aspect more now than ever, and believe it or not, as challenging as it can be, I see some of the rewards being so much more on a high school level than I do in a middle school level. No disrespect to my middle school and my career in middle school, but
All disrespect.
no, not at all.
So I teach U.S. History with Miss Agron. I also teach AP U.S. History and an honors 8th grade class. And this year I taught participation in government and economics to 12th graders. And I'm just thinking about the lens of compromise. Miss Agron and I collaborate every day on what we're going to teach. And we both come to the table with really strong passion and really strong ideas of what we envision our lesson going to be. And I can tell you, we compromise every day with each other, and compromise is not a bad thing.
No.
It's not like you're angry because you compromise. You're willing to be open and listen to somebody else and be like, oh, wow, I never thought of that. Yeah, that's a really good way to approach things. And I feel blessed to have the teaching relationship I have with Ms. Agron because it's really allowed me a lot of space to compromise, and I feel like I'm better for it. So I feel like the issue of compromise is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. We're better when we listen to other people and what they're thinking and open ourselves up to how they're looking at things.
Yeah, I don't mean to just, I know you want to move on to the next question,
fine.
but just to add to this is that we're both alpha females. So we're both very much in charge of what we do, and we're good at what we do. And sometimes that can be difficult for some teachers to let go of the strings of that control within their classroom. But we came together even last year with this mutual respect and admiration for each other as human beings as also as teachers. And setting up that foundation is very, very important. That should be also something that students should see. Sometimes you guys don't see that outside of here, you know? And so for me, it's very important to live up to that example, that you see functioning adults learning how to compromise, strong-willed personalities as well, learning how to compromise. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me, it's not about Miss Barbara, it's about what we can do for the kids. And the kids always come first.
Absolutely.
We love that. Wow. You guys are so smart. Next question. Do you feel compromising is necessary for educators?
I think that we kind of covered that already. We feel that, you know, maybe not for many educators could agree on this, but I know for us, we feel that it's imperative. And, you know, we feel that it is vital to be able to bend. You're not breaking, you're bending. And if it's for the right causes, then go for it.
I guess my question for an educator would be, what's your goal? Is your goal having your students feel powerful, feel knowledgeable, start to question things, start to understand how they matter in your classroom, in your school, in your community? If the answer is yes to all of those questions, and I do feel like compromise and respect go hand in hand, if you value those things for your students, of course you're going to want to compromise because you want to create a safe space, a safe learning community. And that doesn't happen if I'm like, it's all about me. What I say goes. If I go into a classroom and I say what I say goes, I've lost a good chunk of my students because they're going to immediately push back on that. So I guess my question for an educator would be, think about what your goal is. If your goal is to get your students to feel empowered and actually excited about coming to your classroom, compromise is going to be a critical part of that.
I think that's like the problem, like with most of these teachers, like they just want more control of their students. Like some teachers are like that. That's why they don't like the compromise and stuff. Like it's their way or no way.
I think it's also for them. It could be, and I understand where you're coming from with that because I've seen it myself. Where it's if I have this level of control, they're going to respect me. You're not showing what respect is by doing that.
Respect has to go both ways.
Respect has to go both ways. There's an automatic where you're the younger person. You should be coming in with a little bit of respect for the older person. However, if we don't exemplify what positive respect is, and notice how I said positive respect, because there's respect where you feel like you're obligated to do it. Positive respect means that you're willing to make that work. And it's because we show you what self-respect is. That's the key.
So one thing, I do want to give grace to people. Teaching is really hard.
It is.
And I feel confident that most people who go into education do it because they want to help children.
Right.
And they want children to learn. And it can be really, really hard to do that. And there are a lot of skills that go into creating a classroom community where you can give up what you perceive as power to children in order to create a community of learning.
Yep.
So I think this is much easier said than done. I think it does require people trusting in a process, people being trained in a process, and I just want to give people grace because in my mind, I come to this thinking most people truly care about kids. And it pains me if they don't feel comfort in giving up control. So what can we do as a school community to create opportunities for teachers to feel like it's not about control, it's about community?
Y'all heard that question. Go answer that down below.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, right, Miss Barbara? Because last week we mentioned it on the podcast. There was a statement called shared power. So you're talking about having mutual respect and you're talking about showing the proper respect. And we spoke and I mentioned shared power is very important. Like you just said, if you're coming into the school community in order to help kids or to have that passion, then you have to be willing to share your power. You're not obligated, but you should be willing to share that power. So it's beautiful that you mentioned that.
I don't look at this job about power. I would never use that word if you were asking me what my daily life as a teacher was about. Power would never come into the conversation. It would be about learning. And actually, the power would be giving kids power through knowledge. And I feel like Carissa has that same vibe.
That is the only way where power is involved, is that knowledge is power.
And listen, there are times when I have had power dynamics with a student, epic failure on my part. The minute that I feel I have ever presented myself in a position of power, it has epically failed. And that's a growth lesson for me. Like, your teachers are not perfect. Hopefully, we're all reflective practitioners and we learn through experiences. Power should be about knowledge. End of story.
Yeah. There's a difference between personal boundaries and like the level of authority versus the level of power. We are a level of authority, and there is a line you don't cross, but that's your own personal space, your personal, I'm trying to articulate it in a way that's not coming across very well, but like there's that level of like, if we've given you a certain amount of ways to show what respect is and what compromise is, and you break that, you will then see a level of authority that comes from me specifically. But it's still not that level of power where I'm trying to make you feel less than. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of, this is a boundary that was crossed and we need to work on fixing this.
It's not a power trip.
It's not.
We all need moments where we're forced to acknowledge
Right.
actions that we've engaged in that are not nice, kind, or appropriate.
Correct.
So I feel like in the situation you're talking about,
Yeah.
it's not about a teacher asserting their
No.
power. It might be holding somebody accountable in the classroom. I always say, I've given you nothing but respect.
Yes.
I expect it back because I've given it to you.
And I've seen
come
her
to
do
you from a
that.
place of respect. I need you to look at yourself and think,
Yes.
are you giving me that same respect? And I do think, my dad was a teacher. for 40 years, and he said something really important to me. He said, Barbara, respect is earned, not demanded. And if you go into a classroom demanding respect, you will not get it. If you go in and you earn it, and you demonstrate it, and you provide it to your students, trust me, they will give it back to you. And that's probably the greatest advice he gave me.
Was there like a moment like in your teaching years like where y'all didn't want to compromise with your students at all? Like y'all wasn't trying to see like where like y'all wasn't just trying to meet in the middle with them? Like, or were y'all always like just the way y'all are right now?
I would say I don't think it's ever gotten there. I think that I stopped compromising when the line of respect was crossed to a point where there's no negotiating with you. You're consumed by anger, or you're consumed by this level of hurt or pain. It's not necessarily me that's giving this, that's causing this, that you're coming in like this and I triggered something, or maybe it was one of those kinds of days where you're having an off day and this is what happened in the classroom. And it doesn't mean I give up entirely on the student. It doesn't mean I give up entirely on the circumstances. I'm just taking a break from that right now because there is no point in trying to get your thoughts across when a student is that upset or a student is that angry. There's no point. You're not going to be able to get through.
So I feel like I have extremely high academic expectations of my students that are not negotiable. I will not compromise on what I expect you to take from my class and for you to get from my class.
Correct.
So I hold my students to very high standards
Yes.
because I believe in them and I don't want them to think they're not capable of greatness. So as far as my academic expectations, Heaven, you've seen it. I will not allow you to say, oh, I'm not doing this. I hold you accountable for what I know you're capable of. And my thought process is that's not negotiable. I will not compromise my belief in your ability to be great. So that is something that is not open to discussion.
I agree. Like, you know that we're tougher on you. I always give tough love. And if I don't give you tough love, it's because then there's just like, it's on you at this point. But if I continue to push on you, it's because I know that you can do it. And sometimes I would say, like, I'm going to do this for you until you start believing in it yourself and doing it yourself.
Okay. Wow, guys.
By the way, I love this whole podcast format.
Like,
I'm
anytime
really
you wanna
feeling it.
invite us
I like want to do more of this.
Anytime you want to invite us back again,
the lighting
just
is
let me know.
I just feel so legit.
I just feel like I
this is
needed to add
great.
more
It's
makeup
like the
for
real deal.
lighting.
I've got one.
Thank God I don't look so pale.
off. So I just love it.
Yes, it's the real deal right now.
Pardon me, sorry.
As educators, do you feel compromising hinders the progress of the rest of the class?
No.
So I
Not
think it's
necessarily.
really important to be consistent.
Exactly.
And to be consistent in your expectations and consistent in your consequences that you give people. And I think one of the failures in education is when we allow one person to do something and we don't allow other people to do that same thing, and then mixed messages are sent and there is no consistency in rules, procedures, or consequences. That being said, the one thing I've learned as an educator is people come to our classroom with things we cannot possibly imagine, and there are times when we must allow people grace that we would not allow other people. And the lesson for the rest of the class is everybody deserves grace, and if you're unhappy with how somebody is treated, think about why your teachers, who are normally very consistent, very, very on point with equal consequences, why are they giving this person grace? Those are the lessons our students have to learn. I feel like empathy is something that teenagers do not naturally feel, and they are taught, and they can be taught that through teacher actions.
She said it perfectly.
Oh, you have nothing to add on? She just
She said it perfectly.
She just said it. Okay, I feel you.
She said it perfectly. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, What she
Thank you,
said.
my love.
Right. What she
Miss
said.
Barbara said it perfectly.
Clock that T. Guys, do this. Guys, yeah. Clock that T. Go like this.
I mean, empathy is so important, and I think that this generation and this country, this society as a whole is missing that. Sympathy is when you feel bad for somebody. Empathy is when it changes how you act, think, and feel. It makes you an active participant in society. It makes you an active participant in making change. And that is taught. Just like hate is taught. Not, you're not born that way. And so for me, Miss Barbara just hit the nail on the head with that. There's nothing I could honestly add on.
As educators, when do you not compromise with your students? We kind of already talked about
Well,
it.
yeah. We said that we have these levels of expectations for you as a human being, not just as a student. I think that what's imperative is understanding that when you come into our history class, it's not just about taking a regents or learning the lessons at hand. It's making you more aware of the world and your place in it, and preparing you for what life is going to throw at you. And I tell my husband all the time, like, I fear sometimes you guys are not completely going to be ready. You're just not going to be ready for everything that's going to happen, or could happen. And none of us really are, but like the skills that you need or the foundation that you need, sometimes can go awry. And that's what I worry about. It's not even just about you getting that regents done or finishing that essay. It's being able to handle yourself when life throws so many curveballs at you. That's what's important to me.
We love that.
I think she ate that answer, so.
You don't have nothing to add on.
Listen, I think we kind of answered that. We don't compromise on the expectations we have for you to rise to the position of power that you are capable of rising through knowledge. So if there's one thing that we don't compromise, it's expecting you to do everything in your power every moment in that class to find your greatness.
We love that. We need more teachers like that. Like, if we could, like, how do I say this? Because we see how much y'all support us and, like, how much y'all actually want us to grow. Like, if we have more teachers like that, then we will actually, like, be more engaged and stuff. But that's how it is with me. Like, with you guys, I see, like, y'all actually expect, like, y'all have high
Expectations.
expectations, yes, girl. Right? And, but with other teachers, it's not like that. And it's hard for me to, like,
And sometimes you and others give pushback on it because you guys are teenagers and you're supposed to do that. That comes with the territory. We were teenagers too. It doesn't mean we didn't do that either, But we're fighting for you to fight for yourself.
But the other thing is, I think this is an awesome teachable moment for students. Give what you want to receive. So my answer to you would be, give your teacher that you don't feel that connection with the benefit of the doubt. Give them that initial benefit of the doubt. Meet them, compromise with them, and see. My mother always said to me, it's hard to not smile at somebody that's smiling at you. So if we want compromise from somebody, let's try to give them opportunities where they see us demonstrating compromise. So I guess I feel like this is such a nuanced conversation because compromise has to come from both sides. So give what you want to receive. That's how I look at it. I try to give respect because I want to receive respect. I try to give kindness because I want to receive kindness. The same goes for you guys. So if there's a teacher that you're not feeling a connection with, they're a human being when they walk into this building. Sometimes they have the same stuff that we're dealing with. Maybe give them grace and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Just try it.
Their mothers, their parents, they're a daughter or a son of someone. They have their own lives going on as well. And trust me, it's not like we all get along with everybody. We don't. We've learned how there's this mutual respect that we give and learning how to compromise. I think my mom always told me as well, like just reflecting on what Miss Barbara's saying, is that I want to put it in the words that she said it to me. But like when Miss Barbara said, you show up with a smile. Sometimes I've had bad experiences with teachers myself growing up. I made sure that if anything, when I became a teacher, that I wasn't going to do what was done to me by teachers, right? And so for me, it's a matter of being told by my mom. She would say, Carissa, sometimes you're the child, but you have to be the bigger person. And that's what this generation, I feel, and like sometimes as teenagers we forget.
Most definitely.
You have to be sometimes the bigger person, even though that's the adult in the room.
Yeah, most definitely.
You have to show the true character of and exemplify that. And sometimes it turns around because the teacher's realizing, oh crap. And sometimes it doesn't. But you can walk out of that situation with your head held high and your character intact, saying, I was the bigger person. And if you're consistent with that, you will have other adults, such as ourselves, that will back you up to the bitter end when it comes to situations. So it's imperative.
Wow. Learn something new every day.
Oh yeah, well I don't know about Miss Barbara, but I know I didn't have my fair share of really great teachers. I mean, that's a whole other podcast in itself.
I went to school in the Stone Ages when you sat and you attended and you didn't speak and teachers told you what to do, and I was a goody-goody. So, yeah.
Yeah.
The Stone Ages?
Yeah.
What?
That's okay. I was in the Iron Age.
It's a self-deprecating
Wow, this is
comment
crazy,
about
guys.
my age.
You guys are just like roasting yourselves.
This woman over here be acting like she's like ancient and she's fantastic and beautiful and lovely. So she needs to just stop it. She's like amazing. She needs to
Wow,
stop.
that's so cute. That's so cute, guys.
Yeah, Women Crush Wednesday, even though it's
Likewise.
If you were allowed to force one change as an educator, what would that be?
I would get rid of mandated state testing, and I would allow students to actually learn and think and be thoughtful. I would not teach to the test. I know many educators who stand by that statement, where it would be so lovely to focus on teaching knowledge, allowing students to fail and learn from mistakes, and not feeling like you have a test at the end of the year that you must get kids to pass, that quite frankly does not always demonstrate knowledge. It demonstrates test-taking skills and short-term memory. So yeah.
girl. Yes. Okay. Yes. Portfolio. A portfolio at the end of the year, a portfolio in the mid-year, end year, to see the progress of what you're doing. I think project-based learning is much more important than taking a standardized test. I couldn't remember what I took on my I can remember my score, but I can't who cares? I didn't use a TI-83 calculator after I bought it, and it was like $100 and my mom was complaining about it. You know what I mean? Like, that was the kind of thing. It's just that it puts you in a category. And if people were just looking at test scores, they would think, if they looked at my test scores, they would be looking at it and going, how does she brush her teeth in the morning and function as a daily human being? Okay? Because but when you see me, you're like, no, Miss Agron, you're a success. You're this, you're that. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, it took me 4 times to pass the algebra regents with a 65. So these are the types of things that you don't see, you don't necessarily connect with. And for me, it's like, if we're teaching based on a test, you're not seeing the whole caliber of a student. You're not seeing everything that they can do. And don't we want them to be financially ready for the world and know how to cook and know how to take care of themselves and know how to budget and know how to do all of these kinds of things that are going to make them well-functioned, independent human beings that are going to actually give a crap about where our world is going? And maybe that also helps take a step back from social media usage, because we're focusing on other things than what is required of us.
And think about student engagement. That's the goal. We want our students to want to come to class and to be thrilled to be in class, even though you're teenagers, and that isn't always the case. If we had the opportunity to do project-based learning where you are in a group of people working together collaboratively on a project, and there isn't a Regents at the end of the year, and we can have you go on trips and we can have you explore, you would be more engaged. You would be more a part of the classroom learning process because it isn't about rote memorization or rote working on calculations or memorizing facts to be able to demonstrate them on an essay, on a test that you're never going to have to do again. If the goal is student engagement, teaching to a test does not lend itself to that.
You tell me, you start doing that, the chances of you wanting to read certain things and write will become more natural and more like, no, I want to do this project. I have no problem reading and writing for this because this is what I've chosen to do. You know, and I think that middle school to high school in this particular building is very different. Middle school is more project based. You guys got to have a longer period of time when you were with me, say for example in 7th and 8th grade, to do certain things and have the time to strengthen your skills that you're going to need whether you go to trade school, college, or you go straight to work. You're going to have to read, you're going to have to write, you're going to have to know your basic math. This way, if we had something like that, it would then there's not so much pushback because it's student directed.
And you know, the data supports what we're talking about. Finland has
Absolutely.
one of the best educational systems in the world. They do not test their students. They engage in project-based learning. They take their children out to explore the world that they live in as a means to further understand concepts and issues and ideas. And they are the number one educational system in the world. And if you look at the United States educational system, which is rife with mandated testing, we do not even land in the top 10.
And not to be political, like I'm just going to make this in turn in terms of what I could change in terms of teaching history. You'd know the truth, the whole truth, without repercussions, you know? And luckily we live in a state and a city where we're able to do that. We're able to bring forth information and knowledge that gives us fair representation. So the audience that we're speaking to, you guys, will have and feel that you're represented in the history that we teach, but also feel represented in the society that you belong in. And that's the most important thing to me, is to validate you guys and to strengthen your voice and know that you can actually believe that you are the change that you wish to see in the world and that it can happen.
Knowledge is power.
Indubitably.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge
Elementary,
is
Watson.
power.
Elementary, Watson.
Wise words from Ms. Barbara and Ms. Agron. Period. We love that.
Do or do not, there is no try, Yoda. You know I gotta throw in some Star Wars
Yep,
in
my
there.
fault.
Use the Force. Always use the Force.
All
Keep
right.
that balance.
So, there you have it, everybody, and that's the conclusion of another episode of Behind the Arch podcast.
Woo, 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 woo.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. So next week we are going to have a couple of new guests, and we are going to be bringing a new topic, and we hope that you guys like, subscribe, and share
Better
with
subscribe.
everybody. Thank you so much,
And
we'll
like.
catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.